Okay, here's your summary of Chapter 3, where we're talking about consumer behavior, which is really a fascinating chapter. I've taken whole courses on this, and it's really fun stuff. There's a lot of psychology involved with this one. We're talking about all the many different reasons that people shop for products and what influences what they buy and what makes them loyal customers and all that kind of thing. So we'll focus here on personal, situational, psychological, and social factors. Companies do spend just billions and billions studying this, and it determines everything from, why Campbell's soup is red to why, there's pictures of babies and things that don't have anything to do with babies, all these types of things. There's lots of different ways to collect this data. How people visit websites, blogs, social networks. There's psychological things. There's surveys. There's personal. There's also whole fields where they have machinery that measures people's responses, neural responses, and eye dilation, and all those types of things. So sometimes people don't even realize they're responding in certain ways. So there's a lot of interesting stuff on here. So these are the 4 factors that we're going to focus on here: situational, personal, psychological, and societal. So let's talk about the situational factors first. So it can be anything from the store location. We can talk about physical factors here. So, I picked this store instead of that store because this one's more convenient, or this one's easier to get in and out of, or the parking is better, anything like that can be, or I'm not going to drive all the way across town for a small purchase, but maybe for something bigger I will. The physical factor, we have controlled things like, what we call atmospherics. And these are things that the store controls, like the layout, the music, the lighting, the temperature, the overall feel of the store. There's other uncontrolled things. The store doesn't have any uncontrolled things like the weather, for example. They can't focus that, but obviously that can, just look at this blizzard, right, and how that affected stores. How crowded the store is can definitely, people will respond differently when they're relaxed than when they're feeling rushed. There's social situations, whether, think about restaurants. Sometimes you're just expected, there's expected behavior. You'll behave differently if you're at Nick's Airport Inn than you're at the Waffle House, probably. So in certain situations you feel an obligation to buy, like a lot of those in-home parties, like 31 parties or potted jewelry or something like that, because you're at this friend's house and they're counting on it, you feel obligated to buy when you might not normally have done that. So things like that. The time, and this is really about having the right product at the right place at the right time. And so some of that's luck, but hopefully that's planning over there. It could also be how much time you have to shop, which could kind of tie in here to the reason for purchase, whether this is an emergency purchase where you're not going to do a lot of shopping around, a special occasion where you might be willing to spend a little bit more money. So those types of things will influence the consumer's decision, and just the mood. Sometimes you're not in the mood to shop. You have to go get a new dress for this wedding, and you're in a bad mood anyway, so nothing, you don't like anything, that kind of stuff. I think I'm picking a lot of girl examples here. So all these things are situational factors that can affect if the consumer buys or not, and everything from, maybe they feel like they had a bad experience in the store, but it was really just because they were in a bad mood or because the weather was bad and it didn't have anything to do with that, but yet they have a negative association with that store then, and they don't come back. So you'd like to minimize those types of things. Personal factors are our second one, and there's lots and lots of things in here. So personality is your overall disposition. This is actually how open you are to new things, how extroverted or introverted you are, all those types of things. These are actually really hard for marketers to act on, though. That's why marketers will go more here for self-concept, because your idea of yourself is more linked to your purchases, which means marketers can act on that. So they buy products that they feel will enhance how they feel, or project how they see themselves, even if that's not how everybody else sees them. So, or how they, or the position, or the person they want to be, the ideal self is kind of what they purchase. So, sometimes that's how you dress, sometimes it's the car you drive, but those are actually more in tune for marketers. Gender, male and female, obviously purchase differently. And if you watch that video from the Films on Demand, some really interesting comparisons of male and female. Although, when they get to things like houses and cars, it's a really high, like 80% of the time or something, women are the ones that end up making the decision. But they do have very different shopping patterns. Women tend to shop around more, in general, not all the time. Age, there's the chronological age and the cognitive age. So chronological is how old you really are. Cognitive is how old you perceive yourself to be. And this is another one here. Actually, in both of these, marketers need to make sure they don't stereotype. Obviously, there are older people who are active and young and purchase like that, so you don't want to pigeonhole them into, old people products if that's not where they are. Lifestyle is kind of where you go, what you do when you're not at work, all those types of things, how you spend your time. That's the lifestyle. And obviously that, where you can't even read that, sorry. That influences your purchasing patterns dramatically, whether what do you do in your spare time? Am I buying books, or am I buying skis and, water skiing and snow skiing equipment? Very different purchasing things there. Psychographics is, we kind of combine the lifestyle and the personality things to try to develop a profile of attitudes and values and activities, which again will tell us a lot about a person and how they decide what to purchase and all those types of things. So psychographic kind of combines a lot of the other things that we saw into a more detailed picture of the person. Psychological factors, we have a couple different things here. Motivation is a big one, the inward drive that people have. And Maslow, this is Maslow's hierarchy of need, which comes up in sociology classes and psychology classes. And this is very, he came up with this in the mid-1900s. And basically, wherever you are, you don't worry about the other needs until you get that need fulfilled. So, for instance, let's say you're taking college classes to here for esteem needs, okay? To be respected by others as a result of your accomplishment. But the fact is, if right now you're so hungry or so tired that you're operating down here, then these things aren't really motivating you. So you have to fulfill all of these before you get to here. So all these other things have to be fulfilled. And so obviously we can be working at different points in different things, but you use this in management too, because if you're giving rewards that appeal to the esteem needs, but people are still down here on safety, then that's not going to motivate them. So that was the the discussion for this week, was finding just different ads and seeing what are they appealing to here. Are they appealing to social needs? Are they appealing to just basic physiological needs, safety needs? And you can see examples in all kinds of those, and self-actualization. So there's a lot of good things in there. And again, this is one of those things that we could spend a whole lot more time on if we had the time. But again, you may have covered this in some of your other classes. Also along the psychological factors, we have perception, is how people interpret the world around them using all five senses. And within here, you've got a lot of other things too. You've got, we talk about selective attention, which is that we filter out stuff that's not relevant to us. We're hit with so much information all the time, and so you can't process it all, and your brain just kind of automatically filters out some stuff. There's also selective retention. We just remember certain things. And a lot of times, we remember just the things that agree with what we already believe. So we tend to retain those things and just conveniently forget the other things. We've got selective distortion, where we misinterpret the intended message. I mean, you can see this all the time. People just disregard things that don't, or okay, so here's a football one, if this will help you. When there's reports coming out that Peyton Manning was using enhancing drugs, and people, that's not true. But if that same report had come out about Tom Brady, I bet everybody would believe it, because it's kind of, we distort the information. We're like, oh, those aren't reliable, that kind of thing, and because it kind of supports what you already want. And if you're a Tom Brady fan, I apologize. You can kind of go with these, and you've got shock advertising, where I'm trying to just shock the senses. Subliminal, they talk about that one a little bit, and there's really not a lot of proof that that has anything to that there's anything to that it accomplishes anything at all. Learning, then, so perception is how we perceive things. Learning is how we change our behavior after we gain experience. If I've been to this restaurant 3 times and I've had a bad meal every time, then I don't go back. And so I change my behavior because of my experiences or the information I got. So there is operant learning, which is I repeat a behavior. It's conditioning, operative learning. I repeat a behavior when it's warning. So that's like your Pavlovian thing. So operant conditioning, or classical conditioning or classical learning, where I associate a certain response that was not, the learning process where the consumers associated a response with a condition that was previously not associated that with the response. So that's, these are, kind of psych terms over there, but those are the different processes that we have there. And then this one got cut off. I don't know what that Q is, but this is attitudes. We move from perception to learning to attitudes. And these are the overall feelings or emotions or tendencies that we have. These are really hard to change, though, because they're based on our values and our beliefs. And it's very hard for marketers to change those at all. So those are the motivation, and then the perception, the learning, and the attitudes are all part of the psychological factors. Then we get to societal factors, where we have the culture and the subculture you're in. So our culture, for example, says, working hard is good and we'll be rewarded. Subculture might be associated with your age or your ethnic group or something. Some things are accepted, like the clothes that are accepted in my daughter's age group would not be accepted in my age group, kind of a subculture thing. Social class is... it's not just income, but it is largely income. But again, it does inflect your buying behavior. If you think about certain cars would be associated with certain social classes and that kind of a thing. Reference groups and opinion leaders are good. Reference group is the group that you aspire to be into. That's the group you want to be in, whether you are or not. And different groups will also have opinion leaders. They're considered experts in the field. So whether it's the cool kid in high school, or whether it's a blogger that you follow that has a lot of opinion. And so it's very effective for marketers to get to these opinion leaders and get them to influence their behavior. And family is another big one too. At certain ages in your life or certain cultures, again, rely very heavily on the opinions of their family in making their purchasing decisions. And even look too about how sometimes you just buy the brands that your family bought, and you can see that too when you get married, and we're always Peter Pan and my husband's Jif peanut butter, you know, but this is what we always bought. And so you still see those family influences on your purchasing patterns even much later along. And then the last two things here are about the buying process. If it's a low involvement, like a routine purchase, it's inexpensive, it's low risk, you're not going to go out of your way to get a lot of information. And so convenience and convenient location and all those types of things are going to be very important there. If it's a high risk or a high price thing, you're going to spend a lot more time in it, much more high involvement. So you really, as a marketer or somebody trying to sell that, will approach that very different, like a car. And so you're also going to try and alleviate this post-purchase dissonance, which means after I make the purchase, I feel bad, because in any marketing situation, we're trying to get repeat buyers. We're trying to build long-term relationships with the customers, not just a one-time sale. So it's very important. And if you notice, almost any place now where you buy a car, they will call and they will follow up and they'll make sure you're happy with your purchase, because they're trying to alleviate this post-purchase dissonance. They don't want you to just buy one car. They want 5-10 years from now, when you need another car, you're coming back here because you were pleased with the experience from start to finish. Where they're not going to really waste time with that kind of a thing on a low involvement. I don't believe Sheetz has ever called me to ask if I'm happy with the donut I bought. But with big high-end things, then you're going to get a lot more of that on the back end. And then this last one shows you the stages in the consumer's purchasing process. So need recognition, and this is going an example with a backpack here. Sometimes the need recognition is, oh, I'm hungry, or sometimes it's, oh, the dishwasher broke and I need another one. But this one, you need a backpack. You search for product information. Again, the more involved the product, the more high price, the more high risk, the longer this is going to go on. You can talk to friends, you can look at stores, you can look online. The product evaluation then is when you evaluate the information that you gathered in step 2. You start studying, these features are important to me, or these features are not important. Then you make a choice and you purchase it based on the evaluation in step 3. Then the actual use, and this is the post-purchase thing. Did it work? Was it everything you wanted it to be? And then there's this disposal of the product, and sometimes that's in here because you're looking at, well, if it doesn't work out, you know, you're kind of looking at this, I could sell it on somewhere, or I could upgrade it, or some things are harder to get rid of than others. So that could tie into your product, especially if you're talking about like a car. You might consider the resale value at the end of the life and that sort of thing. Okay, so there's chapter 3.